Tonight, died in jail. A Dawson Creek man passes away in the Prince George Remand Center. Arrested. A well-known criminal facing drug and weapons charges. And out of control. A new wildfire breaks out near Buckinghorse River. Well, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. We begin tonight with a Dawson Creek man with ties to organized crime has died in jail. Tyler Callio passed away Saturday in the Prince George Remand Center. Callio was in jail after being arrested in Kelly Lake at the end of March. He and another suspect allegedly stole a truck in Beaver Lodge. Callio fled police after officers attempted to arrest him in Kelly Lake. The search of the truck turned up a 12-gauge shotgun, body armor, night vision goggles, and a crossbow. Callio has a violent and long criminal history with ties to the ongoing drug war in Dawson Creek. So far, a cause of death has not been reported. BC Corrections and the BC Coroner Service are continuing their investigation into Callio's death. Last night, we told you about a well-known criminal from Dawson Creek being arrested in Grand Prairie. Well, tonight, Tanner Murray is facing a number of charges after a search warrant was executed at a motel. Mounties allege a vehicle with stolen plates fled Grand Prairie police. They say 3 people were seen running into a neighboring motel room. A search warrant was executed. Officers say they seized 4 firearms, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and over 150 grams of illicit drugs, including fentanyl and methamphetamine. 3 people, all from Dawson Creek, including a minor, have been charged. A 4th person, Shauna Caput, has a warrant out for her arrest. Back in February, Murray pled guilty to 10 charges and was released from jail near the end of March. Among those charges, 2 counts of assaulting a police officer, possessing a firearm with an altered serial number, and flight from police. He also pled guilty to a number of breach of release orders. Judge Richard Blaskovich sentenced Murray to a total of 300 days in jail. He also faced a lifetime firearms ban and is prohibited from driving for 2 years after a drunk driving conviction. Well, Murray is now facing new charges, including possession for the purpose of trafficking and possession of a firearm. He's also been charged with flight from police, driving while prohibited, and possession of a firearm contrary to an order. He's been remanded into police custody pending his next court appearance. Well, the wildfire is burning out of control 17 kilometers northwest of Buckinghorse River. The Pocket Knife Creek wildfire has grown to 70 hectares in size. It's burning just east of the Redfern Kelly Provincial Park. The Wildfire Service says it's anticipated to spread beyond its current perimeter. The fire is suspected to have been started by lightning on Monday. The Wildfire Service says 5 crews are on scene and they're being helped by an aircraft in fighting the fire. Well, now to a vicious attack by 2 dogs on a man who was out for his daily walk. And a warning, this story contains disturbing details and images. The man was seriously injured when the animals suddenly pounced, and as Ben Milder reports, instead of helping him, the dog owners just drove away.
He was just locked in. It's like there's no way I could get him off.
It happened mid-morning on Mother's Day. While David Peter was out for his daily walk along Hemlock Valley Road, he noticed an older gray truck parked in a pullout. That's when 2 aggressive dogs came after him, mauling his arms as they knocked him to the ground.
Felt like it was about 5 minutes that the dogs were biting into me.
A man and a woman eventually managed to gain control of the dogs, which Peter believes were both pit bulls. But instead of helping him, he says they loaded the dogs into their truck and then just drove away as he lay bleeding at the side of the road. A member of the Stateless First Nation, Peter is being supported by his family and community as everyone tries to comprehend why the couple left him prone and injured at the roadside.
We're just disheartened as a community to hear the events, how they unfolded, and the complete disregard for, our brother.
Fortunately, Peter was able to call 911, and the dispatcher stayed on the phone with him for 33 minutes until paramedics arrived at the remote location. We have to blur these photos of his injured arm because they are so graphic.
There was like flesh falling out of my arm. I got over 50 stitches and Most of it's all on my left arm.
Agassiz RCMP confirm the mauling is under investigation, but say they have no updates to provide at this time. Peter knows it could have ended tragically for him, and that's why he's so angry at the man and woman involved.
I could have been dying, but they just drove by and left. They didn't check if I needed help.
Ben Milger, CTV News.
After a month-long labor dispute, LifeLabs announced today it has reached a 3-year deal with the union representing about 1,200 striking workers across BC. In a statement, LifeLabs says the agreement with the BC General Employees Union came after both sides received binding recommendations from a mediator. Workers had been conducting job action in BC since February, rotating temporary closures at different lab locations. The terms of the deal were not disclosed. Well, many Canadians are choosing not to travel to the United States this summer, but it doesn't look like Americans are avoiding British Columbia. Tourism officials are expecting a busy season despite worldwide uncertainty. Rob Buffum has the details from Victoria.
Whale watching in Victoria's Inner Harbour has an international flavor.
Where are you from?
London, in England.
From Germany.
With the May long weekend finished, it's the unofficial start of summer, and despite some cool weather Monday, it's shaping up to be a hot tourist season in BC.
Expecting a very strong tourism season in British Columbia this year.
A modest increase in visitors from countries like Australia, Germany, and the UK is forecast, and domestic travel from British Columbians and Canadians more broadly is predicted to be 10 to 15% up from 2024. buoyed by folks boycotting travel to the States.
Well, it's either going to be Canada or Europe. We've no interest in traveling to the States right at the moment.
The decline in U.S.-bound travelers hurts the Coho Ferry's bottom line. It travels daily between Victoria and Port Angeles. Business is down 20% overall, but most of that decline from Canadians. Americans like these tourists are still drawn here by their purchasing power and so far remain undeterred by the trade war.
We're not into worrying about politics, right? We want to do what we want to do as a family and have fun.
We're happy to be here, and we're going to enjoy it, and we're going to have a good old time.
We love Canada, no reservations, and we totally understand your situation.
In fact, Americans are flying to BC for overnight stays in droves, estimated as a double-digit increase over last summer.
Strong growth out of the U.S. market for trips, air bookings into British Columbia this summer.
And in Victoria, conferences booked years in advance are even getting a boost from last-minute cancellations in the U.S. redirected here.
We received a few last-minute conferences that we were able to kind of shoehorn in, and literally shoehorn in, because 2 or 3 conferences repatriated to Canada because of the geopolitical thing.
A geopolitical development causing rough waters south of the border, but expected to create smooth sailing for BC tourism this summer.
Prosecutors at the sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players argue today a former teammate is pretending he does not remember what happened that night. The 5 men are accused of sexually assaulting a woman in a London, Ontario hotel room back in 2018 after a Hockey Canada event. Prosecutors want to cross-examine witness Brett Howden, who is not charged. Howden plays for the Vegas Golden Knights. They say he gave testimony that is not consistent with what he said in the past. The 5 accused have all pled not guilty. Canada is hosting the G7 finance ministers and central bankers in Banff. It's a prelude to the G7 leaders meeting in Kananaskis in June. What they're able to agree on by the end of talks tomorrow will set expectations for what could be accomplished at the gathering next month. CTV's Rachel Aiello reports.
Canada's finance minister says this summit is about tackling the most pressing financial issues collaboratively.
Benvenuto in Canada.
Francois Philippe Champagne offered warm Canadian welcomes this morning before getting down to business. The finance minister and Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem are leading the summit's working sessions, bringing together the leaders of the world's largest economies.
All right, let's go to work.
Among the policy priorities being discussed, economic security, global growth, artificial intelligence, and financial crime. Speaking before the summit kicked off, Champagne said his mission is to work on restoring economic stability and growth.
It's going back to basics, you know, making sure that together we are the voice of the largest economy in the world.
And while U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs aren't explicitly on the agenda, they are undeniably hanging over the meeting. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent came to Banff with the intent of talking to his counterparts about trade imbalances. Champagne will have his chance to make Canada's case for the U.S. easing off its trade action in a meeting with his American counterpart expected before dinner, according to his office.
There was always tension around tariffs, but at the same time, there's a lot we can achieve together.
One area where Canada is hoping the G7 leaders will present a united front is helping Ukraine rebuild. Their finance minister is taking part in the summit, even though Ukraine isn't in the G7. Russia is not at the table, but today Trump said it would be better if they were, as the G8.
Because if Russia was in, you probably wouldn't have this war.
The conversations happening here will inform the agenda for next month's G7 Leaders Summit that Trump. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Banff.
The Carney government says it's in active talks with the United States over an ambitious defense project. The goal is to shield both countries from ballistic missile threats. CTV's Abigail Beeman has the latest on the Golden Dome.
This was a President Trump campaign promise, a comprehensive missile defense shield, a project headed by a Space Force general. And yesterday, the president in the Oval Office announced Canada wants to be on board.
Canada, they want to hook in and they want to see if they can be a part of it. And sort of makes sense. I guess that's what I was talking about from day one. You know, it just automatically makes sense. And it won't be very difficult to do, but they'll pay their fair share.
The Prime Minister's office confirmed to CTV News Canada is in talks with the United States about the Golden Dome program in connection to wide-ranging discussions, including about strengthening NORAD. But there are few details about a Canadian commitment. The Liberal campaign platform committed to more than $18 billion in defense spending overall. Trump pegs the Golden Dome at $175 billion US dollars, which experts tell CTV News is a lowball. The project is based on Israel's Iron Dome that protects the comparatively tiny country from missiles and rockets. Trump's plan is more extensive, including many surveillance satellites and a fleet of attacking satellites. Defense experts CTV News spoke with believe it can be a feasible project if you think of it as more likely to start small by picking the most important places and infrastructure to protect and build more broadly from there.
So to me, this was a touchdown. It's exactly what Canada needs to do. It's going to provide the opportunity for Canada to commit real dollars and real capability through the F-35, through the over-the-horizon radar, through the future space-based things.
President Trump has said this can be completed by the end of his term in 2029, something a number of defense experts say is unlikely.
To the Gaza Strip now, where hospital officials say Israeli strikes overnight and today killed at least 82 people. In the north, staff and aid groups report two of the region's largest functioning hospitals have been encircled by Israeli troops. Both have come under fire this week. A third hospital is out of service. Today, Israel's prime minister repeated that in the end, all parts of Gaza will be under Israeli control. In Brussels, the head of NATO delivered a wake-up call today. He's warning that Russia is building up its military at an alarming pace.
They are producing at this moment ammunition at a level which has not been seen in recent decades. They produce 4 times as much ammunition as the whole of NATO is producing as we speak. They are reconstituting their armies, their whole economy is on a war footing. And we have had open sources saying from intelligence services that by 2027 or by 2030 or by 2032, they might be able to be at such a level of strength that they could try something silly. What we have to do as NATO is to make sure that Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin knows that if he attacks now or in the near future, that our reaction will be devastating.
NATO members are debating a U.S. demand that they boost their defense spending from at least 2% of GDP to 5%, and that would also include projects such as infrastructure. Canada and 9 other alliance members have yet to reach the 2% threshold. The bar in Boston that inspired the TV show Cheers paid tribute to its most famous patron. A bier was placed at Norm Peterson's famous spot at the corner of the bar. The beloved character was played by George Wendt. The comedic actor passed away in his sleep yesterday at the age of 76. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back with weather coming up after the break.